projects impressive economic outlook for Nigeria in 2022. On fuel scarcity, NNPC assures Nigerians of more supply and no increase in price. And global stocks continue to bleed as fighting between Russia and Ukraine enters second week. This is Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. It is time to talk business. I will start by telling you that the International Monetary Fund, that is the IMF, alongside some economic experts, have projected an optimistic economic outlook for the Nigerian economy, provided certain macroeconomic fundamentals and policies are met. This was at the American Business Council, ABC, in partnership with KPMG Nigeria event with the theme, The Opportunities and Imperatives for Business, on Wednesday in Lagos. The IMF had projected a growth rate of 2.7% for Nigeria in 2022. A rising IMF country representative to Nigeria said the IMF had, due to COVID-19 pandemic, extended emergency assistance of $6.8 billion in 2020 and 2021 to contain the negative impact of the pandemic. Mr. Eisen noted that reports showed progress in the health sector, with Nigeria authorities responding in the best way possible to contain the pandemic, albeit not so much progress in some other sectors of its economy. He, however, stressed the need for the overall economic policy framework to change by adopting the right instruments to engender growth and development. Presidential assent to the 2022 Appropriations Act came with observations for amendment. 3 weeks after the transmission of the amendment bill to the National Assembly, the Senate has passed it for second reading. Ignatius Unko reports that the bill seeks to provide additional 106.1 billion naira for capital expenditure, 43.8 billion for recurrent expenditure.
The urgency of the 2022 Appropriations Act Amendment Bill saw it being read for the first time on Tuesday, 1st of March 2022, and second reading a day after. The amendment bill seeks to, among other issues, provide for the funding of premium motor spirit subsidy for the fiscal year, restore the provisions made for various capital projects in the 2022 budget, reinstate the 25.81 billion naira removed from the Power Sector Reform Program and 1.42 billion naira for the Federal Ministry of Water Resources. It also seeks to transfer National Assembly's expenditure of 16.59 billion naira from the service-wide vote to National Assembly statutory transfer provision.
There are several other projects that have been included by the National Assembly in the budgets of agencies that are outside their mandate areas.
All we need to do is, all these areas he has emphasized on, we will look into it one after the other and give our own critical analysis as to all of these that he has pointed out.
To the 254 projects, Mr. President, that we need to know those projects, and then the issue of the replication, at what point and by who.
Second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriation to report back within 1 week.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, with joint venture partners, have signed a memorandum of understanding for a gas sale agreement. This is to deliver 70,000 standard cubic feet of gas Chief Executive Officer of NNPC Limited, says this is part of efforts at ensuring greater gas utilization and monetization. Lydia Sampson reports.
Keplers say the MOU is not only beneficial to the energy sector, but also significant to Nigeria's food security.
It's government's drive to ensure that we become self-sufficient in the production of fertilizer in our country, and specifically for this year is zero import of fertilizer into our country. This is the bulk of fertilizer in this country, and we all know for this country and particularly for this government and our president how important the subject of agriculture is. And for not just energy security, but also food security.
Nigeria is almost like second, apart from Egypt. No any other African country has now our capacity. So we will sell, we'll meet up with the domestic market, and then we'll be able to export at least. You are talking of something like about $1.8 billion in terms of foreign exchange coming into the country.
Described as the fastest gas sale agreement so far, there is optimism that other than meeting the domestic fertilizer need, the MOU will make Nigeria a net exporter of fertilizer. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson.
There is no doubt the Russia-Ukraine crisis has had significant impact on global markets. Commodity prices have risen, bond yields are moving up, and equity markets have seen a significant decline. Several commodities saw a spike in their prices over fears of transport and supply disruptions. The region is a key exporter of oil and gas, besides agricultural commodities and metals. The most visible impact was on crude oil prices, which crossed over $113 per barrel before settling lower. Natural gas prices also went up. As the world is still coming to terms with the impact of the crisis, discussions are on. To join the conversation today on Business Express is Aliu Ileas, a political economist. Thank you for joining us on Business Express.
Thank you for having me.
Well, energy is a key component to existence, to survival,
right,
to particularly recovery from the impact of COVID-19.
Right.
And now the crisis in Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine, is affecting these prices. How much of this is impacting on our daily lives?
Oh, definitely it will have a ripple effect. It's a global challenge, and Nigeria is not insulated out of this challenge. But having looked at it very well, now we have about $112 per barrel, but I can tell you that Nigeria is only good at $70 to $80 per barrel, simply because we are paying subsidy for the landing cost of this commodity. And if you look at if it's exceed this price and go to 110, it simply means government has to pay more subsidy, and consequently it will affect the last appropriation bill was 2.5 trillion. Now government has to go back and think again, perhaps withdraw or do additional subsidy, because if not that's the case, we are going to have challenge in the Nigeria oil market. And anything that affects oil affects virtually everything in the country.
Well, haven't made that position known. In the immediate term, what do you think is the solution? More like we can sell our crude on perhaps at a good sale, but because we are important is an issue. Yes, the Dangote refinery is on. What else can we do to ameliorate the situation? More like government still needs to spend a lot of money, and this money is not there.
The fact just remains that we belong to a particular body called OPEC, so you can't just decide and increase your output. Perhaps there's a meeting of OPEC.
We're not even meeting our output yet. Yeah. So what should we do to increase our oil earnings? And then talking about diversification,
right,
oil is still a key
right
thing, but how can we also work on diversification? Well, from the figures we've had from NBS, our GDP is going well, the non-oil sector is actually doing well. What can we do better to create this equilibrium, to create this balance for our economy to get to thrive better than it is doing?
Well, it's a challenging period for Nigeria, though, because we have revenue problem. So that you want to look outside oil, it's afterthought. So the first thing now is to make sure we look for how we can really cushion the effect of the global crisis. And the only way we can cushion the effect is for OPEC to review output, and that could be maybe in April. So before April, we need to put other things in place. Perhaps there is always need for Nigeria to diversify the economy. That's how we can sustain and survive this global challenge. Because at every point in time when there is a change in price, it always affects Nigeria as a country.
Aside petroleum products,
right,
Russia is also exporting wheat, you have metals and other key commodities.
Right.
How would that impact on our economy? Should Nigeria be worried?
Well, the fact is, we even look at
because we're also it's like we're importing wheat from Russia.
That's fine. We do about $2 billion worth of business with Russia, and even import from Ukraine. And if you look at the wheat that I just mentioned, if you look at the grain we consume in Nigeria, wheat is the third largest consumption. That after rice, after maize, rice, it's wheat, and wheat has its byproducts, which has to do with bread and what. And wheat meal. And if you look at bread itself, it's household food that everyone must consume. And if you look at 2020, 2021, we've had about over 50% increase in the price of bread. So now if this crisis continue in Russia, Ukraine, it definitely means that we are going to have more food inflation, because bread affects every household. We have 17% food inflation. So we'll be looking at 20%, except we go back to our former decision that has to do with 10% cassava flour intervention. If you can go back to that and make sure that every wheat has 10% cassava in terms of production, that's how we can push in that effect. If not, bread will definitely go up. Even wheat meal will go up, and it will affect purchasing power and our consumption in Nigeria.
Is there a challenge with wheat production in Nigeria? Is it about weather? Is it about capacity? I know we're producing.
I don't think we can produce more than 1% of what we consume. That's a serious problem. We can only diversify and do cassava with, combine them together. Exactly. That's all we can do. It's not our it's not our main product. And like you can see, maize, rice, we can do it, but for wheat, we can only do 1% of what we consume. So for now, we need to do cassava with combination. At least we can reduce by maybe 25% of it, and that will go a long way to help us.
Okay, still on the oil prices, OPEC maintained the production output. You were suggesting if OPEC can review their output to like maybe increase to get to see how this price volatility can be cushioned. And OPEC maintained their stand, possibly till after April. While that is ongoing, do you see this rally in oil prices going on beyond these few weeks?
Well, the facts remain that International Energy Agency, they are trying to come up with about 60 million barrels to push in the effect. But I tell you, it will not have effect in global price. But however, we still have to wait for OPEC. OPEC will do meeting and decide, because like I told you, OPEC Plus is trying to push, because OPEC is only supplying 40% of global oil. There are other people that are non-OPEC members. The
OPEC, particularly for Russia, they are the second.
Yeah, that's but they are not part of OPEC.
They are not part
of OPEC. So
they are
others,
the allies.
Exactly. Also, other people are non-OPEC are trying to work out modality. But in the long run, it will favor global oil market, but not Nigeria. Like I said, because Nigeria is subsidizing and we're not producing. So the landing cost of international, if it's rise to 120, we'll still pay that price and to affect our market. The only import bill will increase.
Okay, talking about supply disruptions, we understand that we're expecting consignment on the high seas, and the corridor, the Black Sea area is not that very safe. Should we be worried?
The fact just means that the supply chain of oil is going to be disrupted to an extent, because though they have not gone to
already we have a scarcity ongoing. Are you trying to say possibly it might just dip in the boat?
Yes, it might dip in the boat, because those are the routes that they pass through, and there is a signal that you have to be careful perhaps in this route. So supply chain is going to be a challenge, and that's why we need to look more to make sure we cushion this effect, if not to have a serious ripple effect and a multiplier effect on the economy of Nigeria.
In cushioning, you're a political economist. In cushioning, what would you advise?
Well, when we say cushioning the effect, it's just to I expect Nigeria to have a reserve that will go and bring up. Well, unfortunately, if you look at this one that have lingered for 21 days, it only reflects
It's like we're exhausting
we are exhausting our reserve itself. So looking at that, I think we need to just do more by going back and make sure that if it's free on board we are doing, we change the supply chain. The international commercial terms has to change now from the former one. So if you are using free on board or any of other of these policies, you have to change to the one that it will give you flow as at when due.
Well, NNPC assured us just yesterday of adequate supply. We shouldn't worry. Perhaps we are just going into panic buying. We hope it is so. Well, let's move away from oil.
Right.
The stock markets are also bleeding, although markets in Africa are still dominated by the bulls. Is Africa insulated?
Well, the fact that we are not insulated, it's a global market, and the volatility will definitely affect global market. We are not working in we are not doing our business in isolation, so we are not insulated. But the fact just remains that, these bulls, they are in one corner looking at the market, trying to take advantage of and natural human instincts. Once there is a challenge globally, we like to look at way of how I can balance my own part. So because of that, it will affect us, I'm sure. But with what we have seen during COVID-19 and what have you, it's a bad one if it affects us. I think we hope the war will be reduced as soon as possible.
Well, aside this war, the way the market is, any information you get to hear, okay, something is happening in Ukraine, Russia, just the information alone gets to affect the way the market moves. How can that be controlled economically for the layman? Can you explain for the layman to just get to understand how these things work?
Well, the fact remains that panic buying are coming up globally. Is not only us, and like I said, we want to react to what actually happened. Perhaps most of our economy is dependent on international business. So because of that, we are likely going to be affected. But the only thing is that with our CBN, with our foreign exchange, we have to just do more so that we can cushion it and reduce the impact. But it will not affect us. I think it's just trying to dodge the entire scenario globally.
Thank you so much, Mr. Elias Aliu, for sharing your thoughts with us at this particular point in time.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Moving on, oil prices shot above $110 a barrel this week, and OPEC Plus oil producers agreed on Wednesday to stick to their plans for a modest output rise in April, ignoring the Ukraine crisis during their talks and snubbing calls from consumers to more crude, even as crude prices rocketed higher. Let's see prices of oil and other commodities on the global market. Next is Surviving COVID-19, sponsored by the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
I'm a fashion designer, a fashionista per se, and the name of my fashion house is S&N Stitches. I benefited from the AXMIS loan, which enabled me to empower myself through that loan that makes me to set up this beautiful shop you are seeing here. What I got was 1,060,000 naira, and I acquired this CBN Intervention Trust Fund 2020, precisely by January 18. That was when I acquired them, and the sum of 1,060,000 naira was issued to me to kickstart my program. And after that, before that, I have just only one machine. But after which, when I got the fund, I was able to acquire one industrial machine, one domestic machine, and a weaving machine, generator, and you can see the shop. I'm very grateful for this program because it makes me to grow more than what I could think of. I never have this fabrics department, but now I have my fabrics. I have so many things that I've even spread my wings on in terms of fashion. I'm very happy because now I'm now running a program, a training program in Bayelsa State, one of the biggest you can even imagine.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
295 persons have been confirmed as certified national accountants from the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, ANAN. The induction, which held in Abuja, was part of activities marking the 2021 mandatory continuing professional development program of the association.
I cannot quantify it. It's something that I've been looking for several years, but today I'm very much privileged to be part of 2022 inductees, so I really appreciate.
I give all the glory to God that made it possible for this to come true. And I promise personally to abide by the rule and virtues of this association.
We're expecting them to go back to their offices and be different and work in a manner that will show that something has come into them. You see, they've undergone some training. And this MCPD, they were also given some lectures. What have you learned from it to carry it to the place of work and let people see a change?
More importantly, you are also expected to be members of branches. So individually, you should select a branch which you want.
And the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, has ordered domestic airline operators to immediately discontinue the current implementation of airfare increases pending the outcome of its investigation. A statement by the FCCPC says the investigation, which is carried out by FCCPC in conjunction with the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, is to tackle consumer-related issues which include high fares, insensitive flight delays, and cancellations, among others. In the aviation sector, the statement pointed out that the FCCPC prohibits conduct or any coordination between competitors, including on the platform of trade associations. It enjoined scheduled domestic airline operators to ensure strict and prompt compliance with the interim order, pending the outcome of the Commission's investigation. And on the capital market, investors lost 65.72 billion naira on Wednesday as the all-share index dipped by 0.26%, erasing the previous day's gain. The equities market closed at 47,482.73 basis points. Market capitalization stood at 25.5 trillion naira. 279.9 million shares worth 4.1 billion naira were traded in 5,620 deals. Market breadth closed negative as Royal X led 15 gainers as against 32 losers, topped by Nigerians at the end of today's session. That session, Transcarb, United Capital, and Access were the most active to boost the market turnover. Next is Global Market with Bosode Ebo.
The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has continued to set the tone for global markets. Stocks in Asia Pacific were mixed on Thursday as U.S. stocks bounced back overnight. Oil prices, meanwhile, continued to move higher following a price surge in recent days. The Nikkei 225 in Japan closed 0.70% higher at 26,577.27. Mainland Chinese stocks closed in negative territory, with the Shanghai Composite falling fractionally to 3,481.63, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index edged 0.52% higher. U.S. stock index futures edged mildly higher in early morning trading Thursday after the major averages finished the day higher despite escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Futures contracts tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 64 points. S&P 500 futures gained 0.1%, while Nasdaq futures sat above the flat line. European stocks are expected to open in mixed territory on Thursday as tensions remain high over the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Meanwhile, No figures yet from African markets as at the time of this report. Boss said the able Business Express.
This is where we end this episode of the program. Don't forget, you can access all previous episodes on YouTube. You can also again join us on Friday at 3 p.m.